Like physicians and others in the medical profession, vice presidential candidates are admonished to do no harm. To their credit, Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance were so determined not to undermine the standard bearers of their parties that they were downright boring when they debated Tuesday. And while Walz and Vance locked horns over key issues during the live 90-minute broadcast on CBS, they unleashed their heaviest attacks on the two people who weren't on stage. From the get-go, it was clear that Walz, Kamala Harris's vice presidential running mate and governor of Minnesota, and Vance, Donald Trump's running mate and freshman U.S. senator from Ohio, understand their roles in this toss-up election. So who won the debate? Once again, we've asked Sharif Mansour, a veteran speech and debate coach, to give us his unbiased opinion. Mansour judged the previous two presidential debates for us. The podcast can be found on YouTube and Facebook. I'm Bertram Souza, veteran Mahoning Valley journalist and host of the Scribbler podcast. Welcome. Hi, Sharif. Thanks again for agreeing to share your expertise as a debate and speech coach with regard to Tuesday's vice presidential debate. Before we delve into the specifics, again, tell our viewers about yourself and also your experience as a speech and debate coach.
Thank you so much for having me, Bertram. It's great to be here again. I am a third-year varsity head coach for speech and debate here in Ohio at Hudson High School and Hudson Middle School in the Eastern District of Ohio. I have the privilege of coaching a team this year of about 40 active tournament participants and probably 60 non-tournament participants. I have a history in debate and in speech. I competed when I was in high school. I was not particularly good, but I did really enjoy it. And now I get to come back and pass my passion along to my students. It's really one of my favorite things that I get to do.
What prompts a student to get involved in speech and debate? What is it? Does it take a special kind of individual? Does it take somebody who's outgoing? Does it take somebody who's intellectual? What is it that sort of has the young people wanting to get into speech and debate?
I think speech and debate is a very challenging and difficult activity to be involved in. Anybody can do it. I have some very, I won't say timid, but some very introverted debaters who are very, very good debaters because they're incisive. Their minds are sharp and quick, and their knowledge base is broad. I have others who are that more stereotypical, like outgoing, gregarious, talks a lot sort of individual. But there's no one mold within the world of speech or debate. We take all sorts of students. If you are willing to put in the work, you will have the opportunity to learn and grow and become better. And with enough time and enough work, enough coaching, probably you will be met with the sort of success that you hope to find.
How successful have your teams been?
Well, 3 years ago when I took over the team, we had never had a national qualifier. And then in my first year, we had one student go to nationals. And last year, we sent 4 students to nationals, which was remarkable and a tremendous experience. 2 of them were seniors who have since graduated, but 2 of them were a freshman and a sophomore, now a sophomore and a junior. And they have come back and I hope have infected the team with this drive to get back to nationals.
Right.
People, I've never seen students excited to go to Des Moines, Iowa, but here we are. And I hope that we could take a squad there again this year.
Well, all the best. I do.
Thank you so much.
So let's talk about the vice presidential debate. For those who were expecting a knockdown, drag-out gab fest between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, the event, in my opinion, turned out to be a relative snoozer. Indeed, both candidates seem to embrace the admonition, do no harm.
Yeah,
So, did that strategy work, in your opinion?
definitely. This was the best national debate that I saw since 2012, when Senator Romney was going up against then Senator Obama,
Yeah.
or probably then President Obama.
Yeah.
It was policy driven. It was not personality driven. They pointed out when there was a lot of room for agreement. They made it seem like the parties were at this juncture very close together, on a lot of different issues. And I thought that they even so I expected, like you, I expected to be a mess, a debate similar to the Trump debates. And I guess I had forgotten that when Trump is not involved in a debate tends to be a debate. It was more of a debate than an argument. And in that sense, it was delightful. One of the things they did tell me is that in vice presidential debates, you often see the vice president attacking the presidential candidate of the opposite party and to serve as sort of the attack dog for their candidate. But Trump is his own attack dog.
Right.
And Walz just does not seem to have that personality, not as far as I can tell. He's less of an attack dog and more of a high school principal who is going to look at you and he's going to tell you, young man, that's
Right.
not what our expectations are. And there were a couple of times that it looked like he was looking at Senator Vance like he maybe wants to give him attention. But it was civil. They were both fairly well spoken. They didn't always answer the questions, but that's to be expected in any political forum.
But Vance and Walz did, in fact, focus on the presidential candidates. By pointed out, problems, it was things that each of the presidential candidates had said. But you're right. Even with that, they were pretty. It wasn't the kind of bloodletting that we've gotten used to with Trump being on stage. But there was no doubt, and I'm sure you'll agree, that Vance was a lot more slick as the debater than Walz. But how important, in your business, in speech and debate, is stage presence, and does stage presence sort of, and I'll use the word trump, content? Could you discuss that?
Yeah, yes and no, right? I think it depends on the judge. Some people are much more prone to be awed or impressed by somebody's appearance, perhaps. Sometimes students will go and they'll be dressed a little sloppily, and maybe their arguments don't land as well with some judges. I have had some judges comment on my students' footwear, that it was too casual for something as august as debate. And that if you run into somebody like that, there's nothing you could do. You're wearing what you're wearing. But we do have a pretty strict dress code of what you are allowed to wear. And the expectation is that you will be dressed in a business attire. That means a lot of ties, sports jackets, pressed shirts, dress shoes, things of that ilk. Because we acknowledge that presentation is a part of it. But some people have that glow, have that energy, and it does not matter what they're wearing. They're going to command the room. They have that presence. And when they begin speaking, all eyes go to them. And some people don't have that. And in that scenario, they probably need the help of the suit or whatever it is that they're wearing. In this particular scenario, I think that Senator Vance did an excellent job. He was well groomed. His pink tie threw me off. I will say that the pink tie with the red India America flag and then no pocket square,
Right.
it felt a little bit out of place. But it didn't matter what he was wearing, because he had a very commanding presence. And for the first hour of the debate, he absolutely owned that stage as Governor Walz sort of tried to find his way.
Right.
Governor Walz, I think, expected angry J.D. Vance, and so he came out in a hyper folksy Governor Walz, football coach Walz, teacher Walz. And when he realized that was not working, I think he tried to toughen up a little bit. And while he remained friendly, he lost some of that "aw shucks, I'm a knucklehead" folksiness.
And before we move on, as far as dress was concerned, yes, were in suits and white shirts and stuff like that. I was almost expecting Walz to show up in a flannel shirt, sports coat, and
Sure.
and I wondered to myself, I was watching this, is what kind of reaction would there have been nationally had he come out in what is his standard attire?
Sure. Now, you remember when John Fetterman was on the floor of the Senate wearing his
Yeah.
his hoodie and his shorts.
Yes.
Senator Schumer had some things that he wanted to say to him, and I think he did end up saying to him. So yeah, again, their dress was they're both well dressed.
Sure.
I felt like Governor Walz had a navy blue tie that didn't quite match also his sports jacket. But I'm not here to judge their appearance. I am here to judge the words that they were using.
So in that regard, in keeping your scorecard as you watch the debate, what categories did you use in your evaluation of Vance and Walz?
So the first thing that I noticed was that they both do what every politician does, which they will meander around before they get to answer the question. And they don't always get there. But on question one, asked, would you support a preemptive strike on Iran by Israel? Senator Vance started off talking about the American dream. We're going to make it attainable again. But then he stopped, and with like 20 or 30 seconds left, you know what? Let me directly answer your question. We should support our ally, Israel. We should let them do whatever they please. We're not in a position to tell them what to do, which I remember I was cynical as he was answering. And then I was like, oh, he did answer that question. He answered that question directly, which he stopped doing later in the debate. As the questions got a little bit more pointed, he was unable to answer as directly. But this one, it was in his wheelhouse. He was prepared for it, and he answered it. Governor Walz, at times, was direct to answer the question. When he was asked about abortion, he gave a standard Governor Walz abortion question. The follow-up from Senator Vance kind of threw him off a little bit, though. He was not ready for a back and forth. He was not ready for a cross-examination, which, again, part of your debate prep is you got to be ready to make your arguments, but you have to be ready with your rebuttals. And most importantly, if there's a cross-examination section, if there's an opportunity where you are being asked questions and you have to defend yourself, you've got to be ready. And I did not feel that he was very ready. And in an unusual situation, I felt that Senator Vance gave the best abortion answer that any Republican can give in 2024. He talked about the Bill Clinton version of abortion, where they need to be rare and safe, legal, rare, safe, up to a point. But more than that, once a child is born, we want to make sure that we provide healthcare and childcare, which are things that Democrats have been pushing for years, and Republicans tend to stop that. And here was, Senator Vance.
And it struck me that is not the answer that Donald Trump would have given.
Not even a little bit. Yeah.
It was so different. You have this vice presidential candidate on abortion being much more, quote, reasonable than Trump as the head of the ticket.
Vance is in a funny position where he has to be the reasonable one because Trump is just not going to be. And then that's just not who he is. He has never sat there pretending to be a reasonable candidate. That's not who he is. He's the speaking from the heart, off the cuff. I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm going to say what we're all thinking. That's who he is. So Vance has got to be the rational one. And that gets him in trouble sometimes. So later on, when they asked him, who won the 2020 election?
Right. Yes.
He knows the answer is Joe Biden. but he can't say that the answer is Joe Biden. So he's got to kind of slip and slide and uh, play defensively. And he gave a terrible answer. He didn't. There was no good answer to give. He gave a bad answer.
Right.
But at the same time, there were times when he could give a great answer, like he did on abortion. And if they're pushed on it later, I think Donald Trump will say, "Well, my vice president doesn't speak for me." That's not what I believe.
That's exactly true. So if this were a debate, a true debate, and I don't know in a true debate setting whether that kind of a question would be asked, like who won the 2020 election. How is a non-answer graded? Go ahead.
If you have got a veteran judge and you are asked a question and you slide the question, you do not answer the question, they're going to notice and your opponent is going to notice. And the judge will mark it. But unless your opponent also notices and says, hey, I asked him a very direct question about the election of 2020, and he refused to give the answer that we all know is true. He instead squirmed and flopped around. And for that reason, I should win that point. They would win that point. And a good judge and a good debater will seize upon that. And they will make points like, for this reason, we should win this portion of the debate. Now, most debates are one topic. These debates are obviously multifaceted, so you could win one topic and lose another. Right. But yeah, so that in that sense, I felt that Governor Walz did a much better job in the second half of the debate than in the first, sure. While JD faded. That being said, I think on the whole, Tuesday was a win for Senator Vance. And I don't know how much that's going to impact polls. I don't know if anybody's going to watch the vice president say, well, you know what? That made up my mind. Now I'm going to vote for Trump.
Right.
Or now I'm going to vote for Harris. But just looking at it as somebody who enjoys a good debate, this was a good debate. And I would have given that round to Vance. Tuesday went to.
And which sort of, if indeed vice presidential debates were as important as presidential debates, then it would have sort of been a wash because Kamala Harris did so much better than Donald Trump, and then Vance did better than Walz, and so you could say, okay, both tickets sort of equalized each other. But as you said, vice presidential debates are not exactly game changers. And yeah. So there is a sliver of undecided voters in this election, and I don't think you agree. I don't think the debate changed their minds. I think they're still undecided even now.
Yeah.
Is that your impression?
Absolutely. In the Venn diagram of voters who are involved enough that they're going to sit down and watch a vice presidential debate, and voters who are still undecided, I don't think there's much overlap at all there. But you never know. Again, the American electorate is funny and fickle, and there's no telling what will move the needle with individuals. And the reality is, for this election coming up in November, what do we need? We're talking about 10,000 votes in like six states or so. Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, maybe Wisconsin. That's it. That's all. That's all that's at play.
Yes. So, as you went through, and you just said that, in your opinion, Vance did win this debate. Walz, while you're right, was not as slick. I mean, held his own. I mean, given
started poorly, picked up. Vance started sharp, dropped off. Right. By the time they were giving their closing statements, I felt like Senator Vance gave a rambling, incoherent mess of a closing statement, whereas Tim Walz was quoting FDR, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself."
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas Vance is still saying, who won the 2020 election? Well, we need to focus on the future. And inflation caused by Kamala Harris should be our focus now because of the border. Like, I don't know that was at all connected.
So as I was watching this, and as I watched the previous two presidential debates, I wondered, so if you're a voter who's undecided, given the time limits and given the way these debates are set up, you don't really learn much from each of the candidates as to their actual positions and why they stand on the issues of the day. So would it be workable if, for example, they had a presidential debate but broke it up into issues? So you have foreign policy, the economy, social issues, gun violence, whatever, and have a real debate setting. Would that be a better way to do this?
The best way to do this, and I feel very strongly about this, I pitched this to others, they need to treat it like it's a sport, okay?
Okay,
The presidential election is in November. We're going to have 7 presidential debates between now and then. Each of them is going to be 1 hour focused on one topic.
great.
And here we are at the first one. This is the foreign policy debate, and we're going to just talk about foreign policy. That's all we're talking about. One topic, broad, still a pretty big umbrella, but it's one thing. And next time is going to be reproductive health. And then the time after that is going to be immigration. And then after that is going to be trade. And then, you could look at the end of you like, well, the Republican candidate definitely won the immigration and the trade, but man, the Reproductive Act and the the economy went to the Democrat. And then you could look at it that way. And you could think of it as a best of 7 series. You could market the heck out of it. It'd be great. But I don't think any candidate wants to be put under that much pressure and have to take that many days away from campaigning, because they only have like 8 months of campaign these days. So,
and also, the questioning, from journalists, and I realize, that this is sort of they're trying to build viewership and all of that, but it almost seems as though I would rather see the 2 candidates actually engage and point counterpoint and sort of actually correct each other for misstatements and all of that, as opposed to muting the microphone, or interrupting the sort of the journalists interrupting and asking for questions or whatever, because it almost seems like it's a press conference as opposed
sure.
to a debate.
Imagine if both candidates could have one assistant, somebody who's going to fact check the opponent for them and hand them a card and be like, oh, just as I said, according to the New York Times, August of 2024, this is not what abortion was like in Minnesota. Or, Kamala Harris did say that she was the border czar back in 2022, whatever it happens to be. If they had some sort of aide that was there that could be fact checking, handing them cards, handing them annotations, that could be really fun. Again, we're never going to see it, but it would be a lot more fun, to be a lot more incisive. And I think it would educate the American public on the candidates' wealth of knowledge and ability to grasp them much more.
Right. And unfortunately, the candidates for political office, and it's not just presidential, it's all the way down the ticket, have realized that the American voter isn't interested in content.
Yeah, we're not interested in policy, we're interested in personality.
Exactly. And sort of the internet and these various platforms, digital platforms, have turned everything into a YouTube short. And so even discussions like ours, if you notice, when we take out a section of our conversation and put it in as a short, it gets a lot more views than people watching the entire thing. And to me, that's disturbing. And I wonder how you react to that, given that you're used to sitting there watching 2 debate teams actually debate.
Not just that, think of all the process, the prep work that goes into debate. I've got to ask these students to do dozens of hours of reading on every new topic. We just got our new topics released for the upcoming month of debate, for the November debates for the season, when our season begins. We just got the topics October 1st. And the first thing we asked the students to do, we have practice on a Tuesday, we have practice on Wednesday, we're going to have a practice again tomorrow. The only reason we're going to have practice today is because I'm here with you.
I'm
And before I got on here, I was on the phone with one of my debaters, and he says, "Hey, we've got an interesting take on the resolution. What if we did this?" Um, because they've been reading and studying, and I'm asking them to read newspapers and magazine articles and go online and read weird far right and far left sources to wrap their heads about the current resolutions to educate themselves. So not just am I asking them to go up there and debate for an hour or 4 times on Saturday, I'm asking them on a random Wednesday in October to do 2 hours of reading a night,
Wow.
to use my subscription to the New York Times or to go on CNN or to go to Fox News and learn about aid to Taiwan. They know more about aid to Taiwan than I do right now. They're learning all about Taiwan and what the U.S. sends militarily and economically to them. And
Is
they're
that right?
crafting their arguments. Yeah, it's fascinating. Not why I say that the speech or debate requires a lot of hard work. This is a part of it. Not everybody wants to sit down and do 2 hours of additional reading in addition to their traditional workload, distill it, and then come in and now do their writing with Coach Sharif as we try to figure out what our affirmative and our negative arguments are going to be.
What kind of issues are you tackling with your team?
So I think one of the current resolutions is the United States government should significantly decrease the amount of military aid that they provide to Taiwan.
Wow.
Which, yeah, I mean, what a loaded topic, and how
It really is.
relevant to today it'll be. I mean, this is a topic that we should be talking about. We didn't talk about a lot yesterday, but, yeah.
And it just doesn't involve Taiwan. It involves China.
Correct.
It involves the global issues. I mean, my God, and these are kids. As you were talking, as you were saying this, I thought to myself, I don't think Trump or any of the others would be able to tackle a topic like this.
If you can graduate as a debater from a good team in the Eastern District of Ohio, you are ready to go become a political aide in Washington the next day, because you can research, you can write, you could, they could be excellent speechwriters. Again, these kids are something special. They're really impressive young people. Far better than I was at their age, I got to tell you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What are some of the other issues that you'll have addressed?
Over the past year, we have addressed things like justice requires open borders.
Wow.
Or the Supreme Court of the United States ought to be term limited. Or the Chinese government should prioritize the environment over the economy. And there are all these things, like, initially I hear the question, I have a snap answer. I know what I think about it. And then I think about it a little more. I'm like, okay, but I can really see the other side of this. And every topic has two really good sides, and it allows for good clash. You could clash on values, you could clash on policy, you could clash on the reality of the political situation. It's really fascinating.
During the debate, were there any poignant moments that sort of have stuck with you? Let's talk about that. And then, of course, were there any glaring issues, glaring moments too? So talk about that.
The fifth question that they asked Governor Walz, hey, you had said previously that you were in China or at Tiananmen Square during the Tiananmen Square massacre, and that has turned out not to be true. And the answer he should have given is, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I misremember, I misspoke, but I was not there. I apologize for having said that, and leave it at that. He gave one of those, like, oh shucks, I'm a bit of a knucklehead, but I was in China a lot that summer, and I everything sort of, okay, just give the answer. Just give the answer.
Yeah, well, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I just thought that was the low point of his debate. And then I thought, we've talked about this already, where Senator Vance really struggled with the giving an answer to who won the 2020 election. For high points, I thought Vance actually did his best with question 6 about abortion. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I think Republicans in general have a hard time with the abortion issue. And I think Senator Vance gave the best possible answer that somebody who is pro-life and anti-abortion can give and not alienate the pro-choice crowd.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really good. I didn't hate the answers that Governor Walz gave about the high cost of housing and rent.
Yeah.
It's very simple. We need to build more, and these people want to say we want to build on federal lands. That doesn't make sense. We don't want to use federal lands. That's not where people want to live. We want to build it in cities, in suburbs. Let's get some not low cost housing. We're not building more projects, but we're building more of suburbia to allow people to have options in housing, which would naturally free up and bring down the cost of homes overall. I thought it was a really good answer. And then he also had a really good answer about, when we were talking about gun violence, where he said,
yes,
there should be a space between they're going to take our guns, and he said, we're not going to take away your guns, and do nothing and just fortify the schools. And I think he said, turn them into forts. I thought that was really poignant. Yeah, there should be a middle ground somewhere between do nothing, which is what we're currently doing, and take away all the guns, which I don't think would be constitutional anyway. So I thought those were Governor Walz's two best answers.
It struck me that Walz doesn't have that killer instinct.
Correct.
That you would expect from a vice presidential candidate. And the reason I say that is he had ample opportunity to go after Vance on the issue of Springfield, Ohio, and dogs and cats being eaten by Haitians, and then Vance acknowledging that, I make up a lot of stuff, lie about a lot of stuff because I want the media attention.
Yep, he did say that.
It surprised me that he didn't go after the jugular on that.
It didn't feel like it was that sort of stage. It didn't feel like it was that sort of debate. It almost felt like they were both being almost overly polite. So Vance went after Harris, Walz went after Trump a little bit, but they were very nice to each other. And I think it felt like the one who was going to go low was going to look bad, so neither one of them went low.
And that was going to be my question to you. So Vance obviously made the decision to come in and be Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes.
And to change the public perception of him, which is he's sort of an extremist on a lot of issues. And so whoever his advisors were, or whether it was he sitting down with his wife, who's an immigrant, the daughter of immigrants, and saying, okay, so how should we deal with all of these issues? And she telling him as a lawyer, hey, be polite, you don't have to be, aggressive. If he chose that route, if Walz had come out aggressively and just became the flamethrower, would that have hurt Walz?
It's impossible to know now how it would have come off. But I tend to tell my debaters, don't pretend to be somebody you're not when you're up there. I want you to have a good debate voice, but your persona is who you are. Be natural, you'll come off as better. If a timid, shy debater comes off and tries to be very aggressive and nasty and mean, it's just not in them. Their heart's not going to be in it. It's going to come off as if they are just playing a role. And at that point, you should go do a speech and do a dramatic monologue. People can generally sense sincerity. And if you feel insincere, that will be a big loss. So if Walz had tried it and failed, it would have been really bad.
Right.
But if he had tried it and succeeded, it could have worked out really nicely.
Because that's not who he is. He's Mr. Nice, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I think they picked him because he's a nice guy. He's America's grandpa. He's your old coach. He's your old teacher. You like him. He's going to give you the attaboy, the pat on the back.
Yeah.
So I think he was being that on Tuesday.
So overall, watching the two presidential debates, and then this one. Give me your overall impression of the quality of candidates we have running for the highest offices in the land.
If this was a Harris Vance race, it would be very, very interesting. We have the candidates that we want. Okay, I know everybody likes to complain about candidate quality, but at the end of the day, a majority of one party voted for Trump, and while admittedly Kamala Harris was not elected on through the ballot, our Republican system is designed so that if a presidential candidate drops out, we have a recourse, and that was a recourse that the Democratic Party used. And it's not illegal, and it's not unjust, and it's not unfair. It is the process. So we have the two candidates that we deserve, and the winner is going to be the candidate that we deserve too. It's not who I would choose. I'm probably on either side. I have no interest in a California Democrat running ahead of the Democratic ticket, and I have no interest in a MAGA Republican running at the top of the Republican ticket. That's just not for me. Either one. Give me anybody else. But I voted, and I failed. So we have to trust the process. And in general, America's had some pretty bad presidents, but also America's had some pretty good presidents. Right. And through it all, America chugs along because we are more run by our bureaucracy than we are by our president. Our Congress has a lot more power than our president, although the presidential powers seem to be growing recently with all the executive orders. I said in 2016 that no matter who becomes president, they cannot ruin America in 4 years. And I think that bore out, that was true. And I said in 2020 that neither candidate could ruin America in 4 years. And I think that is definitely borne out to be accurate. And I'll say it again this year. Neither of these candidates, if they're elected, is going to ruin America in 4 years. But America could be better and America could be worse in 4 years, no matter who the candidate is. So it's going to be a luck of the draw there.
So you obviously, sort of bleeding from what you just said, you obviously had somebody in mind that you would have liked to see being not only running, but being elected.
Yeah, I'm a George Bush Republican. I voted for Nikki Haley, and I was very excited. Actually, that's not even true. I shouldn't say that. I did not vote for Nikki Haley because Nikki Haley had dropped out by the time the Ohio primary was. And so I did not pull a Republican ballot. I pulled a Democratic ballot because I wasn't going to vote for President Trump, not knowing, not know how.
Okay. Well, once again, Sharif, I really appreciate the time.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Bertram.
Fascinating conversation. We will get together after the election just to sort of do a recap and chat some more about what we see going forward. Right now, I'm sure, like if you were judging this election today, you certainly couldn't. Okay, finally, if you were judging the election today, who would you say is going to win?
Listen, I've been wrong the last two elections, so don't put any stock in this, but I have a hard time seeing a Trump path to victory. I think the Republicans could win the Senate. I think they'll probably lose the House. I think they'll probably lose the White House. And I think they'll probably regain the House in 26. But I think it'll probably be President Harris from between now and 2028.
And yeah, I do too.
It is.
Thank you again. We'll be in touch. Take care.
Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks, Bertram.
Bye-bye.